Okay, I am Facebook Live for you today. I have a question that I'm going to answer for somebody, and I'm going to start off before getting to that question. I'm going to talk about the difference between organic and conventional, particularly when it comes to produce, so fruits and vegetables. Why organic? So in a lot of cases, buying organic food costs more. I mean, there are some people who only eat organic food, but I don't do that because it costs more. I mean, not always does it necessarily cost more, but a lot of times it does. When I go to the farmer's market, a lot of those people are organic. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure if they're all organic, but if they're using chemicals, I'm just going to assume that they're going to be using less horrible chemicals. But to tell you the truth, I don't ask and find out if they're all organic. I just want to support the farmers. But when it comes to buying fruit and vegetables from the grocery store, there are times when it matters, organic versus not organic. And a good source of information about this is the Environmental Working Group and the Dirty Dozen. They have a list called the Dirty Dozen and another list called the Clean 13, 15, whatever it is. So they have 12, sometimes more, produce items, so vegetables, fruits, that they recommend that people pretty much always get organic because every year they go out and they purchase a bunch of produce, all these different items, and then they test the amount of contaminants, chemicals, toxins that are in those food products. In other words, they identify which chemicals have been applied to those foods in the process of growing them so that they can recommend to people, these are the ones that you really want to get organic if you can. And I stick by it, right? So foods that my husband and I eat relatively frequently that are on this Dirty Dozen list are pretty much anything that is greens, even if it's not on the Dirty Dozen list. I'm pretty much always for greens, just choose to get organic because they can spray chemicals on them, and it's right there on the leaf. And so all greens. I looked up the list for this year, and kale is the one that's on there now, and spinach I know is one that can be really bad. So I pretty much only buy organic spinach and organic greens of all kinds. Strawberries are pretty much always on there. Apples are pretty much always on there. Celery. Celery is one that, celery is mostly water. And so there must be a lot of chemicals that they use in growing celery because it's almost always on the Dirty Dozen list. Sweet peppers are on there all the time. And so my husband used to buy non-organic peppers because he said they're grown here in British Columbia and they're greenhouse grown and they're not going to use a lot of chemicals on them. But I now have him convinced. Maybe it's just because I won't bug him about it anymore. I don't know. But he now buys organic peppers. So it's like there are things like that that are always on the Dirty Dozen list. Grapes is another one. Apples is sometimes, I don't know if it is right now, but you know, I live in apple country, and particularly now that they have some, I believe they have genetically modified apples. Yeah, it's like, it's just one that's good to eat organic. Cherries is another one, and again, I live in cherry country. So just getting some foods organic really matters. And then when you look at the clean 13, 15, however many they have on the clean list, those are produce items where they have found in their testing don't really matter so much to buy organic because they don't usually have a lot of chemicals. So ones that we commonly eat that are on the clean 15 or whatever are avocados. I think cauliflower is one that a lot of times doesn't need to be organic. sweet corn. I know sometimes it's on there. I haven't looked recently. So it's like just to know when it matters. Berries, in particular, there are a lot of chemicals that are put on berries because berries can be difficult to grow effectively, I think, because of the mold issues that can happen with berries and probably pest issues. If you've ever seen how they grow like commercial strawberries, it's like you have this big barren field with isolated plants. It does not look like a very natural environment where they grow these things. Not necessarily all, because I've seen, strawberry farms and things like that where it's, looks a little more natural, but it's like a pretty forced environment in which they grow a lot of our foods. And so knowing which ones where it really matters to get organic. And so go to the Environmental Working Group. I put a link to the Dirty Dozen, and probably the Clean 15 is also accessible through there from the Environmental Working Group. So that's when organic matters more than at other times. When it comes to things like grains, knowing that a lot of grains are, they dry down the plant, using Roundup herbicide or other herbicides like I talked about a couple of days ago. Grains, I would also choose to get organic. You're talking about a plant where they spray it with these chemicals, and what the plant does to survive, even if it's in the drying down process, it needs to get that toxic chemical out of there so that it can live as much as possible. And it isolates the chemical in the seed. So the part that gets consumed is where the plant, for its survival purposes, has to isolate that chemical, which means that it's all sitting in there and you're going to eat it. So if you're going to have grains, my recommendation is to have them be organic if at all possible. Now I'm going to address the question that Monica had. She has heard conflicting information about meal spacing and how many meals a person should eat during a day. And when I talked about conflicting messages that we get when it comes to what foods to eat, I didn't talk about the food timing issue. I'm going to do a full Facebook Live on this issue on June 7th because this is worthy of a whole Facebook Live all by itself. But I want to address the basics of Monica's question now. So her question was, I've gotten recommendations that it's good for health to eat a meal every 2 to 3 hours. And then I've also seen messages saying that it's good for your health to eat 3 full meals a day. Really conflicting information, isn't it? I understand Monica's confusion, right? So what is behind the recommendation to eat every 2 to 3 hours? That is all about keeping your blood sugar high enough so that you can function in a normal way. So why is blood sugar important? Blood sugar is blood glucose, and that is the fuel that your body uses to produce energy, to do everything that your body needs to be able to do. Every function requires some sort of fuel. Okay? And if your body is running on a primary fuel of blood glucose, you need to have enough blood glucose in your system for you to be able to think and function and do all the things you need to do. Have you ever had a blood sugar crash? Right? Like you're going along fine, you've eaten your meal, and you're feeling good, you're normal, and then your energy just crashes through the floor? Because you ran out of blood sugar. You ran out of fuel. And your body says, I'm starving. I don't have fuel. And so your energy drops through the floor. Okay? So that's a blood sugar crash. And so in order to prevent your blood sugar from crashing, that's where that recommendation is to eat every 2 to 3 hours. That is based on having your primary fuel be sugar, be blood sugar. There is another way to go. If you don't count on blood sugar to be able to fuel all of your body's needs, then it isn't quite an emergency if you've gone a little bit longer than 3 hours between your meals. So theoretically, you should be able to go easily, effortlessly, basically, for 4 hours between your meals. But if you've used up all of your blood sugar in a couple of hours, where's that supposed to come from? That's where, if your body has the ability to switch from burning glucose for fuel to burning fat for fuel, being a fat burner. So my body is what I call metabolically flexible. And I am able to, I'll talk more about this later, but I'm able to go much longer than even 4 hours between meals. Because when my body runs out of blood sugar, then it's able to switch over to burning fat. So the amount of sugar that your body should have circulating in your bloodstream at all the time is about, might get the number wrong, but on the neighborhood of 2 tablespoons. Maybe it's 2 teaspoons, but a very small amount of blood sugar should be available in your bloodstream for your body to be able to function. That's not very much, right? So I can see how if you are depending on blood sugar for your fuel, for your energy, that if you don't eat every couple of hours, you're going to run out and then you're going to have that blood sugar crash. So for my body's metabolism to be flexible and adaptable and to be able to go longer than 3 hours without having to eat, my body needs to be able to flip over from burning sugar to burning fat. So blood sugar, carbohydrates, are like kindling on the fire. So imagine you have a fire burning and you bunch up a piece of paper and you stick it in there and it just flares up and it's gone in seconds. That's what carbohydrates are like in your body. It's fast, quick fuel, but then it flares up and it's gone. Have you ever eaten like candy or sugar and then you have an energy high? It's like woo, and then you have an energy crash. That's because your body had that flare of blood sugar coming in all at once and it's like everything is energized, right? You're running, you're able to go, you're able to do your stuff, right? And then all of that kindling, that super easy to burn blood sugar is gone like that. And you don't have another fuel to rely on, so your energy crashes. That's the sugar highs and lows that go along with eating a lot of carbohydrates. Fat is like a big log on the fire. Once you get it lit, it'll burn for a long, long, long time. So you want your body's metabolism to be adaptable enough to be able to burn blood sugar when it's there, and then to flip over and to burn fat when blood sugar is gone. Blood sugar is really easy. Blood glucose is a really easy fuel for your body to use. So if glucose is there, or glycogen, which is the storage form of glucose. Maybe I'll talk about that now, right? So it's like if you eat carbohydrates, your body puts some of that glucose into the cells for ready use. It can't leave it in your bloodstream for very long because sugar in your bloodstream is toxic, basically, if it's there for long periods of time. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. So your body has to get it out of circulation. And one place it stores it is it stores it in the liver as glycogen. There might be other areas where the body stores glycogen. I'm not really sure. Okay? But so glycogen is ready fuel. It's fuel that your body can pull out of short-term storage and burn when it needs it. So it's like, imagine if I am going to go running, and I'm going to be running for a while. I'm going to burn through my readily available blood glucose relatively quickly. And then my body will go to the glycogen stores and unpackage that and use that for fuel. Right? So it's like glycogen is like short-term storage, so that you have a little bit of an extra tank of blood glucose to be able to use. But then when you are out of that blood glucose, what does your body do? Ideally, we want your body to be able to then switch to the long-term fuel, the log on the fire that will burn for a very long time, and that is fat. And everybody has some fat that is able to be burned, whether it's fat from consuming fat or fat from storage, which is like body fat. And it's natural that everyone has some body fat, and that we want it to be accessible when the body needs it. So it's like to be able to store in the fat cells and then pull it out when it needs it. Store in the fat cells and then pull it out when it needs it. So that is the whole thing behind the 2 to 3 hours to keep your blood sugar up, right? But ideally, you want your metabolism to be healthy enough that you can go at least 4 hours between meals. And if you have 4 hours between your meals, then you are getting to the 2 to 3 meals per day, which is the other recommendation that Monica was getting that was having her be confused. So it doesn't make sense why this conflicting message has been going on, right? They tell you to do these things, but they don't explain why. They don't explain why you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, or why you want to be able to go for 4 hours between meals and only need 2 to 3 meals a day. I think Monica's question is to have 3, good meals a day. Personally, I think that can be 2 to 3, but we can talk about that on June 7th, which is going to be the Facebook Live when I'm going to talk the whole time about meal spacing, because there's going to be a lot more involved than this conversation in that. All right. Let's talk a little bit about eggs, because organic versus conventional eggs, it's going to matter there. Meat, I'm going to talk more about. There's going to be a whole live where I'm talking about does grass-fed matter when we're talking about animal products. But let's talk about eggs, because eggs are a food product where organic matters, and it's more confusing than that. Okay, so it's like if you go to the grocery store and you get the cheapest, most readily available eggs, those are going to be factory farmed eggs. Those are probably going to be coming from chickens that are a whole bunch of chickens crammed into a little cage and then kicking out eggs. And they're not fed very good food. They're not treated very well. They don't have any space. I think those might be the ones where they de-beak them. They take their beaks off. It's just miserable life for a chicken. You don't want to eat those. You don't want to have those cheapest possible to buy eggs, because those are going to be factory farmed eggs that are going to be full of chemicals. You might get salmonella from them because those animals are not very healthy, and there's all kinds of antibiotics that they feed them. They're probably feeding them genetically modified food, as well as, food garbage, and who knows what they feed to those laying hens that produce factory farmed eggs. So those will not be organic, by the way. If you get organic eggs that are not free-range eggs, they are going to be better than the non-organic eggs, but not a whole lot, right? What organic means when it comes to eggs is that they fed them organic feed, okay? Which actually should probably mean that it's not going to be genetically modified, because genetically modified is not allowed in organic. I'm not positive about that, but at least in most foods, packaged foods and things like that, genetically modified is not allowed in organic. I don't know if that's true in livestock feed, to tell you the truth. Okay, so it's possible they might still be getting genetically modified feed, but if it's organic grain, organic soy, organic corn, I don't think that can be genetically modified, but I am not positive when it comes to livestock feed. Okay, so it's possible that it's not genetically modified, but they might, I think it's supposed to mean that they feed them organic grain. Okay, but they can still be in little cages and treated badly. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't know if you can get organic eggs that are not also free range. So what does free range mean? Because this is confusing, right? So we think that free range means that these chickens are outside on the grass, wandering around outside, eating worms and bugs and grain or whatever it is they're going to eat, plants, right? That's not what free range means. Free range in chickens and eggs means that they have this big, huge barn with all these chickens wandering around. So it's better than being in little cages, but they're not outside. No sunlight, no natural food, right? I think free range might technically mean that they have access to the outside, which means that there's a little door, a chicken-sized door, that technically those chickens can go out. But do the chickens actually go out? Probably not. Okay, so you have huge numbers of chickens in this big building. So they're still crammed all together. They're not in little boxes anymore because they're free range, right? They're able to wander around, right? But that doesn't mean that they're going to be healthy. But it's possible that you might only be able to buy organic eggs in the grocery store that are also free range. I don't know. I don't buy those eggs, so I couldn't tell you, to tell you the truth. Okay? So then you have pasture-fed, pastured eggs. Those are animals that are supposedly supposed to be able to be outside, wandering around, eating bugs, that kind of stuff. So it's like there's a wide range of quality of what you're going to get when you buy eggs. Personally, I choose to buy eggs from the farmer. I'm going to pay more, but the quality of the food that I'm getting is going to be much higher that way. And eggs are very high in nutrient value. If you can't afford to buy the higher quality eggs, then some eggs is better than no eggs, in my opinion. Even if it's factory farmed like normal eggs. That's still better than not eating eggs at all. Because eggs have a tremendous amount of nutritional value in them. So that's what I have to say today about organic versus conventional, and addressing Monica's question, starting to talk about the topic of meal spacing. Thank you for watching. Please give me feedback. What do you think about this? If you want to subscribe to my blog, so go to miracleinspirations.com, and I've got a subscribe page there. I've been doing them weekly with the whole stress piece, and so helping people have quick and easy tips. My video blogs are only a couple of minutes long, so pretty easy to listen to, and I've been sending announcements out once a week. You are welcome. Thank you very much. Want your suggestions about things to talk about. So I may well get through this full 17 days just talking about food and eating. And then I'm thinking about moving on to energy and healing. So I want to know what you think about that. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.